My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 28 years old, and if you've ever been told you were less than your sibling, you'll understand my story. I grew up with a sister, Anna, who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. She was the golden child, the shining star, the one who got applause for the smallest achievements. If Anna drew a stick figure, it was hung on the fridge for weeks. If I got an A on a math exam, my mom would sigh and say, "Well, that's what you're supposed to do, Rachel." It wasn't just favoritism, it was worship. And I was the shadow. I learned early not to expect much recognition. Even as adults, the pattern continued. Anna could hop from job to job, quit responsibilities halfway through, and somehow my mom would still gush. She's just exploring her passions. Meanwhile, I worked late nights, climbed the corporate ladder, and when I proudly told my parents I'd been promoted to senior project manager at my firm, my mom's reaction was a flat, "That's nice, dear. Did you hear Anna might start a jewelry business?" It was a knife. Every single time. The breaking point came last year. We were at dinner, a family gathering, a rare thing now that we were all grown. I had just come from work, still in my blazer, tired but happy. My company had landed a huge account, and I had been instrumental in securing it. My boss had praised me in front of the entire office that morning. For once, I walked into dinner with my head high, excited to share the news. We sat around the long oak table, plates steaming, laughter bouncing off the walls. For a moment, I almost felt like we were normal, until I opened my mouth. "I have something to share," I said, smiling. "My team closed the Harrington deal today. It's the biggest contract my department has ever secured." The table went quiet for a beat. My father gave me a polite nod. My brother murmured, "Congrats." But before anyone else could respond, my mom set her fork down with a sharp clink. "Your success means nothing," she snarled, her eyes locking onto mine. "Anna's the only daughter who matters." The words sucked the air out of the room. I sat frozen, my throat closing up. My chest burned, but no sound came out. Anna blinked, surprised, but didn't speak. My father shifted uncomfortably, staring at his plate. My brother cleared his throat, but said nothing. It was me against her. Again. And this time, she hadn't even bothered to dress her cruelty in sugar. The rest of dinner was a blur. I barely tasted the food, barely heard the chatter. My mother carried on like nothing had happened, praising Anna's creativity and future business ideas as though my existence was irrelevant. I excused myself early, claiming I had work to do. But when I got into my car, the dam broke. I slammed the steering wheel, tears spilling down my cheeks, hot with humiliation and rage. I wasn't 12 anymore, begging for her approval. I was 28, successful, independent, and still being treated like dirt. That night, I swore something inside me hardened. I wouldn't let her words define me anymore. If Anna was her only daughter, fine. But I was going to prove to the world, and maybe to myself, that I was more than she ever allowed me to be. And when the truth came out, when the spotlight shifted, my mother would have no choice but to see me. No choice at all. The morning after that dinner, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding headache from crying so hard the night before. My phone buzzed with a text from Anna. "Sorry about what Mom said. You know how she is. Don't take it personally." I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Don't take it personally. How else was I supposed to take my own mother telling me my success meant nothing? I didn't reply. I couldn't, because I was finally realizing something that had taken me 28 years to see clearly. My mother would never change. And if I wanted peace, if I wanted dignity, then I had to. That week at work, I buried myself in projects. My team had another client pitch, and I led the meeting with a confidence I hadn't shown before. My colleagues applauded when we won the contract, and my boss called me into his office afterward. "Rachel," he said, leaning back in his chair with a smile, "you've been killing it. I'd like you to take the lead on our expansion strategy. This could put you on track for director within a year." My chest swelled with pride. Director. At 28. I walked out of his office determined that no matter what my mother thought, or refused to think, I would carve out my own worth. But a seed of something darker was sprouting inside me too. I didn't just want success. I wanted her to choke on it. The next family gathering came sooner than expected, Anna's birthday. As usual, my mother went all out, balloons, a catered dinner, gifts stacked like a wedding. Everyone clapped when Anna walked in wearing a sparkling dress, my mom beaming like she'd birthed royalty. And me? I slipped in quietly, carrying a modest gift bag. My mom barely glanced at me. Throughout the night, the pattern repeated itself. Toasts to Anna. Stories about Anna. Plans for Anna's business venture that hadn't even started yet. I sat at the edge of the table, smiling faintly, invisible, until my aunt leaned over and asked, "So, Rachel, how's work going? Your cousin mentioned you had a big promotion." I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, my mom cut in with a sharp laugh. "Work? Please. Rachel just keeps herself busy with office tasks. It's nothing compared to Anna's potential. Just wait until her jewelry line takes off." The table laughed along politely. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth, my stomach twisting. That was the moment I decided, no more silence. After dinner, I slipped into the kitchen to breathe. Anna followed me, her heels clicking on the tile. "Rachel," she said softly, "I know Mom's harsh, but maybe just let it go? She'll never change. Why waste energy fighting it?" I turned to her, my hazel eyes burning. "Because I'm done being erased. If she wants to see Anna as the only daughter who matters, fine. But I'm going to show her and everyone else that she was wrong about me. And when I do, I won't hide it." Anna blinked, clearly uncomfortable, before murmuring, "Okay, but don't do anything crazy." I didn't answer, because in that moment, I realized I was already planning something. Over the next few weeks, I started working on more than just office projects. I began laying out a vision for myself, bigger than my current job, bigger than what my family thought I was capable of. I opened a separate savings account. I networked with people outside my circle, attending late-night mixers, quietly building connections. I researched small business grants, investments, and strategies. Every night, while my mother probably bragged to her friends about Anna's future empire, I was building one of my own, brick by brick, spreadsheet by spreadsheet. And I told no one, because silence, I realized, could be power. The next time I saw my mother was Easter brunch. She was in her usual form, gushing about Anna's latest plans that hadn't materialized. "Anna's creative," she declared proudly. "Not everyone has that gift." I sipped my mimosa quietly, biting my tongue. But inside, I smiled. Because what my mother didn't know was that my nothing success was about to become something she could never ignore. By May, I had a rhythm. My day job by sunlight, my own plans by night. My apartment became mission control. The walls were plastered with sticky notes of deadlines, investor contacts, and half-sketched ideas. My laptop never cooled down, the hum of its fan my new lullaby. And though my body ached from exhaustion, my heart burned with something new. Purpose. Every sneer my mother had ever thrown at me fueled me. Every dismissive laugh. Every time she'd praised Anna for breathing while I broke my back for recognition. I wasn't building this to impress her. But I wasn't going to lie. I dreamed of the day she would see me and choke on her words. The opportunity came through a colleague named David. He'd watched me present at work and pulled me aside after a meeting. "You've got a mind for strategy," he said. "Have you ever thought about consulting independently? I know a few startups that would pay for someone like you." His words lit something in me. Consulting. That night, I drafted my first pitch deck. By the end of the week, I'd secured my first client, a small marketing firm needing help scaling operations. I juggled it carefully, making sure it didn't conflict with my main job. It was exhausting but exhilarating. Each invoice I sent felt like proof that I was more than my mother's punching bag. And as weeks turned into months, those side projects grew. Meanwhile, at family gatherings, the charade continued. Anna announced, again, that she was working on launching her jewelry line. My mother applauded, eyes shining, already calling her an entrepreneur. When someone asked what I'd been up to, my mom would wave a dismissive hand. Rachel just buries herself in spreadsheets. It's not exciting. I'd smile faintly and sip my drink. Let her think that. Because if invisibility was the only role she'd allow me, then invisibility would be my disguise. By summer, my side business had grown enough to register officially. I filed the paperwork late at night, my fingers trembling as I typed in my company name, Morgan Strategies, LLC. My name. My own. I stared at the confirmation email, my chest tightening with pride. No matter what my mother said, no matter how small she tried to make me feel, I was building something that was real. Something she couldn't erase. But keeping it secret wasn't easy. Anna started noticing my late arrivals to family dinners the way I always had work calls in the evenings. One night she asked, "Rachel, are you seeing someone? You're always so busy." I almost laughed. Seeing someone? In a way, yes, I was seeing the life I'd always deserved finally take shape. I just shrugged and said, something like that. She let it go. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had the upper hand. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was David again. "I've got a client who needs serious help. They're drowning, and if you pull them out, it'll make waves. Big ones. Are you up for it?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. That project nearly broke me. Late nights, endless spreadsheets, strategy calls at 2 a.m. But when it was done, the company's turnaround was so dramatic that industry blogs picked it up. And for the first time, my name, Rachel Morgan, was in print. Not as someone's daughter. Not as Anna's shadow. But as a professional in my own right. I clipped the article and tucked it into a folder. Not to show my mother yet. Not until the time was right. Because I was learning that silence wasn't just power. It was strategy. The next family dinner came in September. My mother was in rare form, bragging that Anna had sketched a dozen jewelry designs, as if she'd already built Tiffany and Company. I sat quietly, sipping wine, hiding a smile, because just hours earlier, I'd signed my biggest client yet, a contract worth 6 figures. While she raved about Anna's drawings, I thought about the wire transfer that had just landed in my account. And for once, her words didn't sting. They amused me, because I knew something she didn't. I was already miles ahead. And soon, the world and my mother would know it too. By October, Morgan Strategies wasn't just a side hustle anymore. It was a force. What started as a few quiet clients had snowballed into contracts so large I had to hire 2 assistants. I rented a small office downtown, nothing fancy, but it had glass walls, polished floors, and my name etched on the door. Rachel Morgan, CEO. The first time I unlocked that door, I stood there for a long minute, my hand trembling on the handle. All my life I'd been told I was second best, background noise compared to Anna. And yet here I was, walking into an office that was mine. I whispered to myself, they'll see soon. They'll all see. Meanwhile, my mother remained blind. At Sunday dinners, the script didn't change. Anna, the center of attention, talked about her upcoming jewelry launch, which had been upcoming for 3 years now. My mom hung on every word, her eyes glowing. When conversation turned to me, my mom brushed it off. "Rachel's still working at her little job, aren't you?" I smiled politely, nodding, letting her words wash over me. But inside, I burned with satisfaction. Because while she diminished me, I was writing contracts her mind couldn't even fathom. Silence, I realized, was becoming my most powerful weapon. The turning point came at Thanksgiving. As always, my mother decorated the house like she was competing for a magazine spread. Anna breezed in late, dramatic as ever, wearing a sequined dress. The room erupted in applause. I arrived quietly, wearing a navy dress suit straight from a client meeting. My mom barely looked at me. Halfway through dinner, my uncle asked, "So, Rachel, what are you up to these days?" I opened my mouth, but my mom cut me off with a laugh. "Oh, you know Rachel. She's always busy with office work. Nothing exciting. Anna, tell them about your designs." And just like that, the spotlight shifted. Again. But this time, my uncle gave me a sharp look, like he knew there was more. And I decided, Soon, I'd show them. December brought my biggest win yet. A Fortune 500 company signed with Morgan Strategies for a year-long consulting contract. The deal made headlines in industry news. My name printed again, this time in bold. I kept the articles. I saved the clippings. Not to shove in my mother's face, though part of me burned for that moment, but as a reminder to myself, I was building something real. And I wasn't invisible anymore. But cracks were forming in Anna's golden facade. Her jewelry line had drained the money my parents kept funneling to her. My father was quietly stressed, though he never confronted her. My mother brushed it off, insisting, "All artists need time." Anna's a visionary. Yet whispers spread among relatives. My aunt confided in me after Christmas dinner. "I don't think Anna knows what she's doing. Your mom can't keep covering for her forever." I just nodded, biting back a smile. Because I knew the day was coming when Anna's pedestal would crumble. And when it did, my mother would finally have to see me. By New Year's, Morgan Strategies had grown beyond anything I imagined. My team had doubled. I'd hired an office manager. Clients sought me out instead of the other way around. One night, I sat in my office after everyone left, staring at the city skyline. I thought about the girl who had once sobbed in her car after her mother called her nothing. The girl who had been erased at family dinners, overshadowed by Anna's empty promises. And I realized that girl was gone. In her place stood a woman my mother could never deny. And soon I would make sure she knew it. The chance came faster than I expected. My parents planned a dinner party in February, extended family friends, even a few business acquaintances of my father's. A chance to celebrate Anna's progress. My mom gushed, though Anna had no actual progress to show. I RSVP'd without hesitation. Because this time, I wasn't walking into that house as the overlooked daughter. I was walking in as Rachel Morgan, CEO. And the reveal was going to be unforgettable. The night of the February dinner, I pulled into my parents' driveway with my heart pounding, not from nerves, but from anticipation. For years, I had walked through that front door bracing myself to be ignored, dismissed, cut down. But tonight was different. Tonight, I had nothing to prove, and yet everything to reveal. I wore a tailored emerald green suit with a cream blouse, my hair styled in soft waves. It was professional but striking. When I caught my reflection in the car window, I barely recognized myself. I didn't look like the invisible daughter anymore. I looked like the woman I'd fought to become. Inside, the house buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses. My mother floated from guest to guest like a queen hosting her coronation. Anna sat at the center of attention in a glittering dress, accepting compliments for plans that still hadn't materialized. When I walked in, heads turned. A cousin blinked and said, "Rachel, you look incredible." My mom's eyes flicked to me, then away quickly. "Oh, you made it," she said flatly, before turning back to Anna's admirers. The old sting returned for half a second, but I swallowed it down. Tonight, she wasn't the one in control. I was. Dinner was lavish, as usual. Roast beef, wine flowing, laughter echoing through the dining room. My father made a toast to family and new beginnings. Everyone clapped. Then my mother stood, glass raised high. "I want to celebrate Anna," she announced proudly. "She's been working so hard on her jewelry line, and we know it's only a matter of time before she's running her own business empire." Applause erupted. Anna blushed, ducking her head modestly, though she looked thrilled. And me? I sat quietly, smiling faintly, until my aunt leaned across the table and asked, "Rachel, how's work going these days? Your cousin mentioned something about a big contract." Before I could answer, my mother laughed sharply. "Work? Rachel just keeps herself busy with office tasks. She doesn't understand risk like Anna does. But that's fine. Not everyone's meant to shine." The words sliced through the room like a knife. A few people shifted uncomfortably. My aunt frowned, and I knew then it was time. I set my glass down gently and stood. All eyes turned to me. "Actually," I said calmly, "I do understand risk. I've built my own firm from the ground up. It's called Morgan Strategies." The room went still. I continued, my voice steady. We just signed our first Fortune 500 client last month, and we're projected to double in size this year. Murmurs rippled through the guests. My uncle raised his brows. A family friend muttered, "Impressive." My mother's face drained of color. What are you talking about?" she stammered. I met her eyes evenly. "I'm talking about the business I built while you told everyone my success meant nothing." The silence was deafening. Then Anna laughed nervously. "Wait, you're saying you're a CEO?" I smiled faintly. "Yes." Gasps echoed around the table. My aunt clapped her hands together. "Rachel, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I looked at my mother. Because some people never wanted to hear it. Her jaw clenched. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. For once, she didn't have a snide remark ready. The rest of dinner unfolded like a slow unraveling. Relatives peppered me with questions. How did you start? Who are your clients? Where's your office? While my mother sat stiff and silent. Anna tried to redirect the conversation back to her designs, but the shift was permanent. The spotlight, for the first time, wasn't on her.
It was on me.
And it wasn't leaving. That night, as I drove home, I thought about how different the air had felt at that table. For years, my mother had made me feel small, invisible. She had convinced everyone, including me, that I was less than. But not anymore. I wasn't just standing in my own light.
I was blinding them with it.
And the best part? This was only the beginning. The fallout from that February dinner came faster than I expected. Within days, relatives who had barely noticed me before were calling and sending messages. "Rachel, I had no idea you were running your own company. Next time you're in town, I'd love to hear more about your work." It was flattering, yes, but more than that, it was liberating. For the first time, people weren't seeing me as the quiet, overshadowed daughter. They were seeing me for who I really was. Everyone, that is, except my mother. She didn't call me after that dinner.
She didn't text.
She didn't even send one of her passive-aggressive emails. It was silence, thick and heavy. But Anna called. "Rachel," she said hesitantly, "what you said at dinner, it kind of embarrassed Mom. She feels like you blindsided her." I let out a short laugh. Blindsided her? Anna, she spent her whole life acting like I don't matter. I'm done apologizing for existing. Anna sighed. "I get it, but she's not going to forgive you easily." "I didn't ask for forgiveness," I said, my voice hard. "I asked for respect. And I finally have it from everyone else if not her." There was silence on the line. Then Anna muttered, "You've changed." And for once, I smiled.
Good.
But change unsettled people, especially those who thrived on control. At the next Sunday dinner, my mother was all ice. She barely looked at me, her smile strained, her words clipped. When relatives tried asking me about my business, she cut the conversation short with, "Let's not bore everyone with work talk." The old me would have shrunk. The new me? I leaned back in my chair, sipped my wine, and let them see her bitterness for what it was. Because the more she tried to erase me, the more obvious her fear became. Meanwhile, Anna wasn't doing well. Her jewelry business had stalled. The money my parents had poured into it was gone, with nothing to show for it. The whispers grew louder. At family gatherings, relatives who once praised her now asked pointed questions. "So, when will we see the launch? What's the plan for making this profitable?" Anna would laugh awkwardly, deflect, and glance desperately at my mother, who always swooped in with excuses. "She's just perfecting her craft," my mom would insist. True talent takes time. But I could see it in Anna's eyes, doubt creeping in, shame nibbling at the edges. And for the first time, I wasn't jealous. I pitied her. Because unlike me, she didn't know how to stand on her own. By April, Morgan Strategies landed another major contract. This time, the press coverage was impossible to ignore. One article even quoted me, "Rachel Morgan is one of the sharpest rising strategists in the business world today." I knew my mother saw it. People told me she did. A cousin mentioned she'd tried to brush it off, saying, Articles exaggerate. But the more she minimized me, the smaller she looked to everyone else. And that was a shift I could never have forced, only earned. Then came the confrontation. It was a rainy Sunday evening. I stopped by my parents' house, not for dinner this time, but to drop off a gift for my father's birthday. He greeted me warmly, but my mother hovered in the doorway, arms crossed. When Dad left the room to fetch coffee, she turned on me. "You humiliated me," she hissed. "You made me look like a fool in front of everyone." I blinked, stunned for a moment. Then anger surged through me.
No, Mom.
"You did that yourself. I didn't humiliate you. I told the truth about who I am. The only reason it embarrassed you is because it didn't fit the story you've been telling for years." Her face reddened. "Don't twist this. You think you're so clever, so successful. But success doesn't mean you matter more than family. Anna will always be the daughter who matters most." I stared at her, my chest rising and falling. And then, for the first time in my life, I smiled at her cruelty. "Then that's your loss," I said softly. "Because the world disagrees with you. And deep down, I think you know you've been wrong about me all along." Her lips parted, but no words came. When I left that night, the rain drenching my coat, I felt lighter than I ever had. Because I finally understood. I didn't need her validation. I had built my life without it. By summer, the shift was undeniable. My business was thriving. Relatives came to me for advice. Even family friends who once fawned over Anna sought me out. And my mother? She retreated into brittle silence, clinging to Anna like a lifeline. But everyone could see it now. The golden child was faltering. And the daughter, who meant nothing, had become everything she tried to deny. That realization didn't fill me with triumph. It filled me with peace. Because the revenge wasn't in proving her wrong with words. It was in living a life so strong, so undeniable, that her opinion no longer mattered. And in the quiet of my office, with my name on the door and my future blazing ahead of me, I whispered to myself the words she never could. I matter. I always did. By autumn, everything had shifted. Morgan Strategies was no longer a small firm making quiet waves. It had become a recognized name in the industry. I'd spoken at 2 conferences, hired 10 employees, and signed contracts that made my company's annual revenue higher than anything I'd ever dreamed of. The articles kept coming too. Rachel Morgan, from background to boardroom. The quiet strategist who outshined the competition. Each headline was another brick in the empire I had built from the ground up. And though my mother never congratulated me, I knew she saw them. Her silence was proof. Meanwhile, Anna's jewelry line collapsed. The launch never happened. The money was gone. Whispers of debt began to surface. My father, weary and gray, admitted one evening that he couldn't keep funneling money into her projects. "She has to stand on her own eventually," he said quietly, almost ashamed. I listened, but didn't gloat. Because I understood something now. Anna wasn't my enemy. She was another casualty of my mother's favoritism. A girl raised on applause without effort, praise without proof. She was set up to fail. And for the first time in my life, I pitied her more than I envied her. The final shift came at Thanksgiving, exactly a year after the dinner where my mother told me I meant nothing. The table was full, the food lavish as always, but the atmosphere was different. Relatives no longer fawned over Anna. Instead, they asked me questions about my company, my staff, my next big project. I answered humbly but clearly. I didn't downplay myself anymore. And when my mother tried to redirect attention back to Anna, the conversation drifted back to me anyway. For the first time, her power over the narrative was gone. And I could see it in her eyes, the fear, the anger, the realization that she could no longer control the story. After dinner, I stepped outside onto the porch, wrapping my coat around me. The air was crisp, the leaves swirling in the wind. Anna joined me a moment later, her arms crossed. "You've really made it, haven't you?" she said softly. I looked at her, searching her face. There was no bitterness in her tone, just quiet resignation. "I worked for it," I said gently. "And you can too." But you've got to stop waiting for Mom to carry you. Her eyes flickered, and for the first time, I saw something new in her. Maybe not determination yet, but awareness. She nodded slowly, then went back inside. I stayed on the porch, staring up at the stars, and thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the girl crying in her car after being told she meant nothing, to the woman running a company that mattered. I realized then that the real revenge wasn't in making my mother eat her words. It was in no longer needing her approval at all. When I finally left that night, my father hugged me tightly, whispering, "I'm proud of you." It wasn't everything I had longed for, but it was enough. And as I drove home, I smiled to myself. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying the weight of my mother's dismissal anymore. I was carrying the strength of my own worth. And that was more powerful than any insult she could ever throw at me. I've learned something through all of this. Some people will never see you for who you are. But that doesn't make you invisible. It makes them blind. And the best revenge isn't shouting to be heard. It's living so fully, so loudly, that their silence can't touch you. I matter. I always did. And finally, I no longer need my mother to admit it. Because I know it for myself.